Hey everybody, good morning, and welcome back to Reaper Pro Tips with me, your host, Anne, and Disembodied Hands, Justin. I should almost call him Disembodied Brain Justin at this point, because he doesn't really type, and he doesn't really talk. He just kind of keeps half a brain on us while he works on finishing all the other stuff Ed wants him to do. So Disembodied Brain Justin. Yes, there we go. There we go. Where's your red skull? Your red skull's there. I see it, Kerniko. Your red skull is here. Yeah, it's Sphinx Day. Is that like Legs Day? Yes, yes. Tashishi? You've acquired another she, Tashi? Head in a jar, Justin. A brain in a jar, Justin. He could be, for all I know. I haven't seen real physical evidence of Justin's existence for a while. Like Legs Day, totally, totally. Well, we're going to be doing more feathers today, although we're going to try to finish it. Yeah, he's just busy, guys. Don't worry, Justin still loves you. Hello, Kato Gato. Well, it's kind of part cat, so I would hope from your name that, yeah, you would paint it, right? Here we go. Let's rock. Let's rock on Sphinx. All right, so Sphinxy. So I did some thinking, and as I've mentioned recently, I did, of course, use an actual bird for reference on Sphinxy's wings, but there are times when you just kind of kick that to the curb and go, okay, I'm mostly looking good, but I need to do something apart from the actual reference. So the actual bird actually does look like this, and then it transitions to all light on the underside of here. But when I put the wings on Sphinxy, I really wanted some of this gold color up here on the top. I really felt like it would balance out the wings, so that's what we're going to do today. We're going to add that, and then we're going to bust out some feather highlighting and shading and try to get the Sphinx wings in a good position. So, yeah, but you can see what I mean, right? Like, she's so warm and golden, and so this is just a bit much. I feel like she just needs this color to wrap around a bit and just hit the top soft feathers, I think. So we're going to do that. We're going to depart a little bit. So yeah, I mean, you should always feel free if it's like you copied a natural reference for one of your fictional animals and it's just not working very well, feel free to extrapolate. I mean, just, make little changes. Chances are the realism that you got from going with a photo reference in the first place is going to still stick, right? Like, even though I added blue to the wings here instead of like black, I'm still like well within like a natural wing look. So, hello, Scott. Nice to meet you. I'm Anne. SKU 774. Is that the disembodied brain in a jar? Yes. See if Justin's head in a jar is somewhere hiding in the background. Absolutely. I suspect he would endorse that effort. Save Justin's head in a jar. All right. So Sphinxy's going to go and sit and stay out of frame, and we're going to work on wings. So let me see here. Let me get closer. There we go. Let's make sure we're in focus. Luckily, that's easy when the wings are just sitting on the ground. And let me get over here. There we go. Hey, D. Clearman, I'm down another pound today on the new diet. So feeling good, feeling good. Whenever I drop a pound or a part of a pound, but especially when I drop a pound, I'm just like, it gets me all jived up again. I'm just like, woo! Yep. And tell your wife I looked at my breakdown, D. Clearman, and that all my foods are red and green. Like I'm either stop or go. There is no slow. This is dangerously close to my real life living style. Oh, so funny. So guys, we're doing Noom. And D. Clearman and his wife like started it up at the same time I did. So we're trying to encourage each other. But yeah, it's cool. It's a cool app. I like it. Alrighty, here we go. So let's start with our basic, get our basic colors. Remember the mid is just rich leather on these. And then we've got a shadow color that's mixed up with brown liner and russet brown. And David keeps stealing my brown liner. And I determined last night that I have no other brown liner in the house, which is just ridiculous. Hey, Corey, thanks for the resub. Fantastic. Yeah, Christmas food, right? Yeah, it could have been just a really good Justin hologram. I agree. Bad David. Thanks, Abyssal Icarus. I agree. Well, with Icarus, I think probably you wish you had nice wings, right? Or maybe you fell, like you tried to fly to the sun and you fell down. Pardon me while I reclaim my brown liner, guys. There it is. But yeah, at this point I have to put in a special order to Reaper just to get brown liner. Like, I really should just order like 6 bottles of it. Stealing. See, he stole it. I reclaimed it. Because it really isn't, like, if you don't own brown liner, like, get a bottle. Try it out. Yell at me if you don't like it. But yeah, so now we're going to tackle the insides. And as I was talking, for people who just came in, I decided that I actually wanted some of this warm brown color to creep over and be on the top of the wings because of the way Sphinxy looks, because she's really warm. And I want some of that warmth up here to kind of like, because this gray color is natural for the bird that I chose, but it doesn't go very well with Sphinxy. So I'm going to cover up some of that gray with the warm, kind of blend it in, and then we're just going to leave the light feathers in the middle. So we're still mostly going with the African Harrier Hawk pattern, but we're just giving a little bit of a brown warmth here to tie into her shoulders, just because of the positioning. And that's something that when you're painting wings separately, you should check, right? When you've got enough of it blocked in, then you want to flip it over and kind of like socket it into place and see how it looks. And double check yourself, because that's where you may really want to depart to suit your model, which is totally valid, right? In the end, you want your model to look good, naturalism or no naturalism. So even when you're using a photo reference for a part of a beastie or a person, feel free to extrapolate if it just isn't fitting very well. And usually you can do that and still keep most of the realism look. Alrighty, so rich leather. Get Sadie to make me up a gallon, right? That's what I would do in the old days. You know, that's the old bad Anne. It's like, I want this color. I'm going to make a gallon of it. And then maybe we'll use it at some point. I did a lot of that. And the sad thing now, guys, is that I've come up with 2 more color ideas and I can't make them for you. I could totally do a new browns triad right now. I have like 2 of the colors. All I need is the highlight, and I'm pretty sure I can nail one. And it's like, I can't do it. So maybe I should swatch them out and send it to Sadie. I'll send Sadie a postcard in the mail saying, make this triad next. That would be like ridiculous. That would be ridiculous. Hello, I went splat. Boop. All right, so 1 drop of the thieved brown liner. I really am going to have to put in a Reaper order, because we can't go on like this. I use brown liner all the time. And he's just going to keep taking it. Notice that I'm the one that has to order it, too. He's not going to order his own bottle. He just wants me to order an extra bottle that he can steal. This is the great injustice of my situation. All right, let's see here. Yeah. Right, got it. So Sphinxy has a little bit of a complicated color scheme, but not really. I mean, it's just mixing. You have to mix the shadow, and then you can use the shadow to create your highlight, which is a little bit weird. But, you know, that's me. So you all knew what you were getting into. Paint tax, yes. Yeah, great. Well, I mean, brown liner is a very, 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 very useful color. And as you can see, I use it to blend into other paints. I don't just use it for lining. I mean, I use it as a quick shader. I mix it into paints a lot because it's, how to say this? The liner color, if you've noticed, they're kind of translucent. So the liner base has a black in it that's more transparent than our standard black, because we use a pretty high coverage black at Reaper for a lot of our stuff. And sometimes you don't want that when you're mixing. Sometimes you just want a little bit, just a little bit of darkening and not that opacity, because you all know I like transparency in my paint. I like push, push, push. Say transparency is a feature, not a problem. And so for me, I like that with the liners. And so brown liner is a much better solution in those circumstances where you don't want to totally blow out your brown with black. Because if you added walnut to this, it would destroy it. It would just, you'd lose this warmth to it completely. Has to be brown liner. And so keep those things in mind, that not all dark browns are created equally. And ones that have a little less coverage are usually going to have less impact when you use them to mix And so if you're looking for something that you can glaze or shade with, transparency is often a really valuable thing in shading colors because you're trying to create blends from your midtone down to your shadow. And that is made so much easier when your colors are transparent. Who knows? It could be something. Oh yeah, Bones 5. Morning, Inara. Good to see you. What clear drop? Oh, sorry, water. Yeah, Abyssal. I have I have a dropper that's just water, and then I have droppers that are water and flow improver added. The empty dropper bottles from Reaper are really useful for that. Or if you can just get empty droppers from other companies too. Reaper sells a 3-pack though, and that's a handy little thing. Or if you get the Learn to Paint kit, you'll get one. Let's see, bleached linen plus a brush full of shadow color. So brush full of shadow color. And a dab of, oh, that was way too much shadow color. Oh well, I might have to make it lighter. That's okay. We like to mess up on stream because then we can show you how we fix it, which most of the time is just not freaking out. And then a touch of rich leather to warm it up because this is a little bit too gray. So we're going for this cream color here. So just a touch. All right, now I need to just add more bleached linen because I've darkened it out. Though you know what, this might be a useful transition color. So I'm actually just going to transfer that and put another couple drops of bleached linen in. Bleached linen is what we're using for our white here. Often I won't use pure white on animals because most of them don't actually go up to pure white. Pure white is a very stark color, and most animals are actually off-white or cream or a light gray or something like that. It's rare to get a pure white. Sometimes with the light you will. But even then, I like to go up to an off-white often. I think it's more natural. Wow. This biscotti color is strong. The force is strong in this color. It wants to resist my additional white. Yeah. Yeah, more or less. I mean, you still get you get disparity in the size of drops from any dropper bottle based on the viscosity of what you're squeezing out of it. And also the surface tension. So 2 things, viscosity and surface tension. Water does not have anything to break its surface tension unless you add flow improver to it. So it will probably give you slightly larger drops than it would if you had a mix of something. But, it varies. And likewise, when you're squeezing paint out, if you notice that it's not a really thick paint, you may notice your drops are smaller, not as big as your water drops. But that's fine. You're the one working with it, so as long as you know what ratio works for you, the better. That's fine. Hey, Strato, thank you for the Prime sub. Awesome. It's nice that you're sticking around. We really appreciate it. We really do. I used to tell this story more. Now that we've been around for a little while, I haven't told it as much. But Reaper was really reluctant to get on the Twitch thing. Like, they were like, kind of like, is this going to work? Is it worth it? So, like, for Reaper to have, like, gone whole hog into the streaming and Zoom stuff and all that is mostly because of support of you guys. Like, if we hadn't gotten so many subscriptions and if we didn't have so much community support, like, Ed would not be, like, and nearly, like Justin and I would our jobs would be imperiled. So thank you. The subs do actually matter. Even though Reaper's a big company, Reaper has this tendency to break out parts of itself to see if an individual venture is going to be worthwhile, right? Is actually going to pay for itself and even make a little money. So the Twitch thing is like that. Reaper is able to they break it out and they look at it separate from their company as far as whether it is worthwhile. So thank you. Your support does matter. All right, let us try to blend in some stuff here. We've got some colors and some transition colors. I didn't mix the gray again because I'm kind of like, I think I want to go for that beigey color. My biscotti is good enough. I don't think I want to go... Okay, so one of the problems with this gray, guys, even though it is proper, is that it's muted, right? Any color with gray in it doesn't have a lot of saturation. It's closer to a neutral, so it's muted. That's what we say. Less chroma is another way to put it if you're using proper art terms. And so muted colors don't go very well with saturated colors or bright or high chroma colors like the Sphinx has. Like, she has a lot of bright, really warm, intense, vibrant browns on her. And then there's all the jewelry colors. So when you try to throw a big swatch of gray next to that, it doesn't work very well. It doesn't. And animals sometimes make it work. Because, we expect that natural shading, and it's not horrible on Sphinx, but it's not great either. So, yes, Reaper is run by accountants, and that is why. Yeah, Abyssal, if you go to our website, you should be able, the problem is, of course, Brexit. Thanks, Brexit. But we do have a place in the UK, and I think hopefully they negotiated a little bit of a shipping break with Europe when they split. So if you make sure you go to our UK store, hopefully Abyssal, that gets you somewhere. Hopefully you can get like stuff with less import fees tacked on. Yes. Well, Reaper is run by accountants, and that is why it is still a thing, unlike many other miniatures companies that started around the same time as Reaper and are no longer a thing, right? Oh, it's always going to be a thing. I'm sorry. Well, we have a place in Australia. Like, you should be able to type in Australia, but I guess that's still, like, it's close, but it's still a separate country, so it's like, yeah, no. Oh, no. I'm sorry, Abyssal. Just be selective. Just don't go whole hog then. Make sure you don't, the taxes don't get you. All right, so let's change some of this stuff up. So this side actually got a lot more gray. I'm going to have a little more work to do over here. I'm going to mostly target these small feathers. See the tiny feathers? We're going to do those. So I'm going to start, I think, and this is a thinned color too, so it's not going to be fully, if I use a thinned color instead of totally using like a base coat thickness color, a little bit of the gray is going to still be in here, and that may help everything go together. But if I decide this is a little bit too much, I'm going to add in some dark brown too. So, because the rich leather is really high intensity. So now I can come back up here again. I'm going to do kind of the splotchy darks and lights kind of thing that I did when I was starting out. Here, let me get closer so you guys can see. So essentially we're just wet blending gently with kind of thinned paint. So it should run together and kind of create an interesting pattern. Alternating lights and darks. The thinner your paint with wet blending, the less defined splotches you're going to get using this technique, the more everything's going to spread out and blend together. So, kind of ask yourself like where you're going with this. And if you're just messing around, well, then it doesn't matter, right? Yes, you're A-okay with like just enjoying the painting tips. Do keep in mind that some of this stuff is a little bit different with other brands of paint. Because most other paint companies use a much heavier bodied base than we do. So you have to thin it more to get the same results. And it may fight you a little bit on transparency. A lot of them also have different finishes. Master Series is very matte, which I love and did that on purpose because I always, when I was in art school and when I was a younger painter, I really hated the fact that like artist paints were always, they said they were matte, but they weren't. They were actually satin. It was just that was the concept of matteness in the art community. And that always drove me bonkers. So when I got to making my own paint line, I was coming from using a lot of other paint lines that were not matte, and I was like, I am going to finally make a paint line that I don't have to dull coat all the time. Because that was what I was doing, is I was doing all this great fine work, and then I would have to dull coat, put a spray coat of utter matteness over my work to really assess it. So we're going to see, guys, we're just going around making some little speckles. And then I'm going to take my cream, and I'm going to do a transition layer here. I'm going to kind of do a layer of lighter feathers. And I may end up dropping the gray entirely when it comes down to it. I may decide that it's just not going to work. And I might put almost a glaze of our cream over the whole thing. And just trash these previous layers. Could do it. Sometimes you just decide to change your mind in the middle of the figure. I do this a lot. Like, if something's not working, if I have original conceptualization, especially if I've gone in whole hog on, like, thinking, oh, I'm going to do this color combo, and I don't stop and kind of assess along the way sometimes as much as I should, then I'll end up repainting a section. And it's okay. I mean, it's just a little extra work, but... So we're bringing that down and in. So now I feel like I do have to bring up that area. So let's actually try just doing a glaze of our cream, maybe with a little bit of rich leather in it. Now, glazing light is hard because a glaze is not like a wash. You're not letting it pool. You can't let it pool because it's such a thinned down paint that it'll dry with coffee stains, those markings. So you don't want that. And you also, it's hard because you're working with the most opaque pigment, white. So it fights you. It fights you. You have to tune it and you have to figure out exactly how you're going. But, and you have to be super fast with it because if you do leave an edge, oh, it's going to show up. So glazing light is probably the most challenging, one of the most challenging techniques, I think. And you can't touch it, like, not at all. After it, the minute it starts to dry, you have to, like, go hands off. Because if you touch it with a light glaze, you're going to see it. You're going to see it. It's going to leave a mark. If you're using tube paints, Chibi Amy, don't forget the additives. Tube paints would benefit by the use of an anti-shine additive, some sort of like our anti-shine additive, or a matte. Some people use matte medium and it seems to work. I've never tried to matte down a tube paint with matte medium, so I don't know. Matte medium is going to change the viscosity of the paint, but you need something in there. Tube paint doesn't work great unless you add and flow improver and everything. Like, if I told you how I doctored my tube paint, like seriously, I turned my tube paint into MSP by adding a bunch of additives to it so that it acts more like MSP. I did this to all of my gouache too. But do keep in mind, yeah, that tube paint is made with a different base. It doesn't have the same adhesion as even the Scale 75 stuff that I like. It does not have the adhesion of regular. So I would seal over it, definitely, if you're working with it. You're going to have to use pretty heavy sealer, I would think. Morning, Villandar. Yeah, it just needs doctoring. Like, it's like when I used to work at the Games Workshop store in Chicago suburbs, and the guys all complained when I left because I stopped doctoring the paint. So then they had trouble working with it. I mean, this is a real thing. This really happened. Because I used to add flow improver and like a little bit of extender and some other things to the GW paint. Shh, don't tell them. In the store. This is the set that we would work with on our armies. All right, so let's glaze. I've got a lot of it in the brush. I'm going to put it over everything. I'm going to wick it off as fast as I possibly can. That's to like take down this gray tone and try to replace it with something just a little warmer. It may or may not work. The nice thing about feathers is if I decide to do only half the wing, I can stop at a specific feather. And that way I'm not going to worry if there's a coffee stain or anything like that. All right, so is applied. It's all over the place. I'm going to rinse out my brush, squeeze the water out of it, go back, and before it starts to dry, wick away all this extra. If you see bubbles, blow gently on them to pop them, or use your brush to pop them. Pull all of the fluid out of the cracks that you can. And in these wings, there's a lot of cracks. If you have to stop and squeeze out your brush again, do it. Work fast and precisely until you get all of these little pools out. Do not want any pools because you have broken the paint by all the water that you have put in it, and the paint will not be kind to you if you leave puddles. And just kind of work along, and the minute you see that it's starting to dry, because once you remove all this excess fluid, it's going to start to dry pretty dang fast. Then you have to stop, step back. Oh, I might have a little extra time. There. That should be mostly good. And it's going to continue to run off the high spaces too, so you know it's going to continue to leave a little bit. I should be all right. There's still a little bit of pooling. It's still pretty wet here in the center, so I should be able to still touch it. But be like, use the tiniest tip of your brush. Like, do not. Using a bigger brush is good because you can suck up more moisture. I think I'm going to try that. We're going to see if we get any bad drying. You can see the wet sheen on it still. We'll let it dry and see. Glaze surgery, yeah. Well, and we'll be able to see the difference, right? Once this dries, we'll be able to compare it directly with this. You can see that it lightened everything, right? Like it lightened everything from the little black markings to all of the general feathers. So, and it did shift the color warmer. It's not as gray as it used to be. So if we set these guys up against each other, you can see that I've essentially glazed over everything just to knock that out. But, and I haven't like killed like all of my markings, so I can still redo my markings. Yeah, no puddles with glazing. Yeah, the only thing it does, Juris, is when you mix it with matte varnish or matte medium, that's always going to change kind of the way the body of the paint acts, because you're adding in an additional resin, which is what those clear sealers are. It may not be the same type of resin the paint was actually built with. Chances are, if you're using it with tube paint, it is going to help adhesion. Like you're mixing varnish with tube paint, you're adding probably a close to pure acrylic resin, which is the most durable and hard. It can also be shiny, but since you're using a matte varnish, it's probably going to add matteness. So that may actually be a good combo. What varnishes and mediums don't add usually is flowability. So if you want the paint to self-level a little bit better, you can add a drop of water with flow improver in it, and that will probably give you the best of all worlds. This is just based on me working a lot with the Scale 75 artist line lately because I like it. I still find that I cannot layer nearly as well, like blend using layering, nearly as well with tube paints as I can with MSP. But that's what MSP was built for. It's what I built it for. So, It's because I'm pounding information. Like this is what we call in writing the Pope in the pool, right? I fill you guys up with information while we do things, or I distract you with information while we're not doing things. So you know. All right, so now it's drying great, and you can see that it's warmed everything up a bit. Even here where it was very gray, it's now a lot less gray. It's more like the transition layers down here. That's pretty good. That's about what I wanted. So, hey, Dragon Eye, how's it going? Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I mean, the only problem sometimes, I mean, most additives these days, Jairus, should work well together. Every once in a while, some company will put out something like Tamiya, or Tamiya, however you want to pronounce it, the Japanese company, don't mix their stuff in with other water-based paints because their stuff is weird and requires its own thinner. But otherwise, most acrylic tube paints and miniatures paints of all lines should be more or less compatible these days. I'm going to finish the glaze because I like it on this side, guys. So now we're going to go to the other side. Again, I'm squeezing out my brush to make it damp. It still has a tiny bit of water in it, but most of the water's been squeezed out so that it can schlorp up. Schlorp is a technical term, by the way. Make a note. We can make the and glossary t-shirt next. And just go down, and wherever you see it pooling, just kind of pull it up into your brush. Don't want to leave pools or it's going to dry weirdly. We like weirdness normally, but we do not like weirdness when it leaves coffee stains on our mini. So, there. Perfect. Schlorp. Yes. Okay, Dragon Eye. Well, yay. Congrats on the new job, though. That's awesome. Yay for new job. All right, so we've got one wing kind of set up, and I'm thinking this is it a little bit too much? Let's try it. I keep thinking it's too much when I look at the rest of the wing, but the real test is, does it look good on Sphinxy? It's a little bit much. I need to put in some shading. I need to define areas of the feathers. Mostly it's just not, it's not defined very much. So, and I think that it might need to come down here a bit. And I think I need a darker edge right under these feathers to pick them out. I think that's part of what's bothering me, is it's vague right now. So let's continue with our doctoring of the Sphinx wing. And we'll have a before and after even. And I'm going to switch to a brush with a nicer tip and work with my shadow color, which, if you remember, was 4 drops of rich leather, 1 drop brown liner, 1 drop russet brown. I actually may take it a little bit darker at this point. I think because I'm working with more black brown here on this wing, I think I want to actually take a little bit of this over and add another drop of brown liner to it. And this is how I work with the well palette a lot. Like when I'm painting just myself and doing my own projects, I am always just grabbing a brush full of this, transferring it over and adding something to it so that I'm building logical shadows and highlights And by logical, I mean ones that relate to each other, so that have a little bit, like this new shadow will have a little bit of my previous shadow in it, and that will make them work together better. It's a logical progression, instead of trying to mix something new with paints that I didn't use the first time, in which case the color may be off and not work as well. So I just did one more drop of brown liner, and I'm thinning it with a drop of water and flow improver this time, because when I'm thinning it, and if I'm planning to line or shade or be precise, I like a little bit of extra flow improver sometimes. I do want it to stay fairly strong. I want to be able to get a decent amount of color out of it, but I don't want a stark line here. It would be too much. Ooh, a raise, yay! More miniatures, Dragon Eye. Hello, Iffy. It's good to see you. Yeah, we talk food, diets, exercise books, sometimes Zen, latest recipes, and yeah, we're well-rounded. We talk about a lot. We do talk about food a lot because I love to cook, and I'm usually on a low-carb diet, or I've just started a new program because I've decided that by my Hawaii trip, which is also, you know, within spitting distance of ReaperCon, I want to be 38 pounds lighter, so I'm on the journey. You all can watch me, like, you know, succeed or fail. It'll help keep me accountable. All of you are my accountability partners, some more than others. All right, so I'm going to take this thinned paint, and I'm going to kind of define the edge here on my darker shadow wings. And I'm going to do kind of like the edge, but then I'm going to try to blend it out a little bit as well. Like, I'm wondering if what I don't like here is just a little bit, and I am going to bring this color down also. So let's just bring some of this down here where it meets up with these warm feathers. That might make a little more sense visually. And a little bit more shadow. Work it out into the area I've already painted to kind of blend it in. Oh, too early for diet talk, 7 a.m. Yeah, you're right. Even I agree with that. Hey, Brace. Great entertainment while getting my emissions test. That's great. More minis, yay! Jobs are just there to support our hobby lifestyles. That's all. That's it. My job is a hobby lifestyle, but you know. Still working on, I have it on my list for this weekend, guys, to start plotting out, like, seriously doing some work on my new class curriculum. And what I'll probably do is, since I promised John Paul Speaks that I would try to do a couple of Zoom seminars, if I can figure it out, what I'll probably do is rework those classes, and then I'll offer it up. Like, I'll tell you guys on stream, and if you want to be my guinea pigs, like, I'll put a cost on it, but it won't be like break in the bank cost or anything, because then you guys can help me kind of test my new subject matter and format and see if it works, see if you learn anything, you know, stuff like that. Probably my Patreon also, so if you're on my Patreon, you'll get the special heads up. I may even do a class just for Patreon patrons. That'd be kind of fun. Would reward my patrons for being my patrons. My Patreon is patreon.com/paintingbig. And I appreciate all of you very, very much. It is my main source of income. It keeps the lights on. It keeps me fed. I'm eating less these days, but it still keeps me fed. And it makes me not feel totally guilty when I want to order a new miniature. Yeah. All right. But yeah, so we'll be figuring out how to do just a little bit of online seminarness. And I like to kind of test my new classes. Like, I've always kind of wanted to test my new classes before offering them at a con. And often I don't get that. In the past, I haven't gotten that opportunity. But now, with everybody being so used to Zoom and stuff, I feel like I can do that. And it'll help me work out some seminar stuff and timing and stuff like that, you know. You're willing to be a test subject? Good job. Awesome. Students of the Forster method, yep. Well, and I mix up my method too. So technically, some of the stuff I tell you guys is from other people's methods, right? Some of it's from Sergio, some of it's from Kirill. Some of it's even from Jeremy. Oh, that was a long time ago. And I wasn't as good of an empty cup then. Like, I've become a much better, I've gotten much better, to talk some Zen, at putting myself open and just trying to look at stuff objectively, like when somebody's teaching something to me, like as if I knew nothing about it, right? Trying to blank my mind and like just enter into it willing to learn whatever. I've gotten a lot more out of workshops since I started doing that. Okay, so that crisps that edge up pretty well. I have no idea, Gray. All right, so now I need to get these things in line with each other. Let's see here. Let's get some water. Some of these paints are a little bit thicker because I didn't, I mixed them and then I didn't add my water to them. Water. Boop, boop. And I do like working with thin paint in general. Oh, hey, I see gift subs. Shadow Raven, what did you just do? Oh, for classes, Dragon Eye? Within the next month, I'm trying to get some stuff ready for the Patreon to kind of, like, say, yay, Patreon, by the end of April. So it'll probably be one of the things. It's like, I'll put up there, like, hey, if you want access, I'm going to be teaching some seminars to test out my new classes. If you guys want in, become a patron. I'll probably put it up on my Facebook, social media, yada yadas. And I'll mention it on here as well. Because I need to, it's like every once in a while your Patreon starts to stagnate. You need to try something new. So that's what I want to try. Yeah, some techniques are actually easier when you know nothing about a topic. But yeah, Shadow Raven, thank you for all those gifted subs. That's cool, Francis. It's all right. I mean, you learn more than enough to... I mean, I thought about doing more coaching, but it's like, I feel like, I don't know, I feel like I'm better, like, with the class seminar thing, so I'd almost like to transition a little bit to that. I like small groups of painters, more one-on-one, or 1-on-6 kind of teaching instruction. It's less pressure on each student, it's less pressure on me, because I can spread out my attention all over everybody. So it's just, I'm still trying to figure it out. Like, I've been doing this Patreon for over 2 years and I'm still trying to find the sweet spot of like, where do I need to be? What do I want to do? You know, hey there, Zito Raven. Another raven. Oh no, we're acquiring ravens like we're acquiring raccoons. We have at least 2 raccoons, maybe 3. All right, let's get this other one going here. Decided that I'm liking where I'm going enough to change it. And darkening down that top part helps it go with everything down here as well. So when I start adding shadows now, I'm going to be clever and work some of these browns into this area to make it all work together better. Because if you repeat a color, you can do that. So again, this is wet blending, stippling. Just laying down some of that color in a speckled pattern, then bringing in a dark brown and speckling it in. Since the paint is very thin, it's going to flow together more than it would if it was thick, creating more of a mottled effect that has splotches but not spots. It happens. Magic happens. Gift a sub 20% off. Awesome. What, emptying your brain? Abyssal? Doing the empty cup thing? I don't know. There was a time, I tend to do this because I have such an analysis brain. And so I would go into classes and my brain would always be trying to draw parallels with all what I already knew. And that's great for a learning technique, unless you're trying to really shake up your understanding of something. Like, and if I'm going to pay $250 or $300 for a weekend seminar, I darn well better be like, you know, making some major breakthroughs in my painting. So I just found that if I went at each class like from just square zero and I didn't think about, you know, how I would do it, I just got a lot more out of it. All right, let's get some of this stuff like connected. A little bit of gray sticking through. Splorch things together. Splorch. I make up words all the time. Dr. Seuss gave me permission when I was young and I believed him. All right, let's get this. Let's try to marry these up. There we go. So that they're more or less. They don't have to be perfectly symmetrical, because no wing is perfectly symmetrical. I mean, Julie sculpted these very organically, and she wasn't trying to make them perfect, like perfect mirrors of each other, which is good, right? There's like variance in nature. But we do want to get them more or less to kind of look, you know, close. So that when we're looking at the Sphinx front on and we see both wings, we don't notice any huge disparities. So that's coming along. So this is a really simple technique to just create kind of randomized natural patterns. And it's just wet blending with stippling. I'm thinking about one of my new classes being like brush strokes and like what they do physically, like what you could use them for. I used to do a class called brush strokes where I looked at almost everything you could do. All right. Yeah, see, this comes down just a little bit more on this side, these soft feathers, just a little bit more. All right, let's add in a little bit more dark. If you feel like you're getting mostly this light tan and you want some more dark, we can even add a little bit of our brand new dark, which is much darker. And we could put that in some of these new wet areas to fully further darken areas. And if you do that, if you choose a much darker color to wet blend stipple, it will leave a little bit more spottiness. It'll tend not to blend in as much because they're not as similar, but you can darken your color down. Yeah, Anne's Dictionary. Yeah. A group of you is a nursery. Ooh, a flock of ravens is a conspiracy? I thought it was no, it's a murder of crows. Hey, Julie. I invoked Julie by saying how I liked how she sculpted wings very organically. Yay. Julie summoning one. Poof. Hello, Bob and Julie. It's good to see you. But yeah, Julie's have to be summoned when I'm working on Sphinxy. So we decided to put in some more dark color at the top of the wing, Julie, because it wasn't looking quite right to have all that gray at the top, even though it's natural for the bird. The warm colors work so much better on Sphinxy. Yeah, that's much more like it. So now I'm kind of changing the underside of the wings a little bit. It's still going to have a lot of light compared to the back just being, you know, the browns. But we're gonna work with this and make it a little warmer. Yeah, it's okay. A conspiracy is also, so it is a conspiracy of ravens. That's pretty awesome. Kind of gives ravens a bad, you know, bad rep there. But I guess they always have kind of like any bird that eats carrion at all kind of has a sinister reputation. Ancient humans just decided they weren't quite sure about them. We have beautiful crows here. I gotta say, in NorCal, like the crows that I see, big, glossy blue-black crows. They're just gorgeous. I always say hello to them when they're wandering around when I take my walk. They're very handsome. Very handsome birds. Oh, I got a little bit too much paint in my brush. Never mix up your brush and then right away use it to apply paint to the miniature. I was distracted there thinking about the glossy crows. Always rinse out your brush and reload your brush, then apply paint to the miniature. So we're doing that border down here, remember? Kind of a subtle border. It's with painting with more of a wash than anything, so it's more like layering. We just want to kind of crisp up this bottom edge, make it a little sharper. So that's what we're doing here. Yeah, we have beautiful crows here. They remember individuals, huh, Bissell? Awesome. Well, then I will keep saying hello to them. I think that's good enough for me, Valandar. I mean, I make up words all the time, so it should come as no surprise that I am willing to embrace somebody else making up words. Because it validates my words to have their words be official, quote-unquote official. So I'm good with it. I will continue saying hi to the crows. Then maybe when the revolution comes and the crows attempt to take over our society, they will remember me and I will not be a casualty. All right, so we've got slightly more golden on this one than we did on the other one, so I need to change that. Oh, you carry peanuts for them. Are those good for crows? I wonder if I should carry snacks for crows. That's probably bad. Yeah, they're very smart. Oh, interesting. Interesting. I'll have to look up what their diet is. Maybe I can bring a snack for crows. I don't know if I always see the same one. There's one I always see on the side of the big park. very, very big glossy guy or girl. All right, so we've got to make it a little bit more, bringing in my really dark paint to make this a little bit more desaturated. Probably my paint was a little thinner over here, so we're seeing more of the gray come through. So I have two choices. I can try to like darken and desaturate this brighter wing, or I can come over here and add a little bit more intense color to bring these intense colors back up. Raven Radiance Official. Oh yeah, they can speak. They can be taught to. Yeah, I'm more concerned if I'm going to give food to a wild animal, I want it to be good food that's good for the animal. Oh my gosh, Cornico, that's funny. Yeah, I'm tempted to keep a bird feeder. We had one always as you know, when I was younger, when I was a kid, we had one at the house. Mom loves birds. And I really like birds also, so I told David that maybe we need to go to San Francisco to see the parrots of Telegraph Hill, if they're still around. I expect they actually did pretty okay during the pandemic, though, because they eat a lot of they don't rely so much on garbage. Apparently, they eat a lot of fruit. They steal fruit from people's trees. Oh, co-evolve with human diets, yeah. Crows are pretty liberal. Crows are like us, except that they have better, they've kept slim better. They get more exercise. Yeah, it makes sense. Makes sense. Wild animals are meant to be wild. All right, so I decided to warm up the other wing so that it's closer. But to do that, I added in more of my warmest brown, which is this rich leather, 9429. So now the wings are more in parity. I still feel like I need a little bit more shadow here. And this is where, if we hold them up, we can see that there would be a shadow area like right here. And so I'm going to test that. I'm going to put the wings on Sphinxy and hold her up to the light in the appropriate angle. And then I'll probably bring in darker shadows under that edge just to make sure that I'm paying attention to light sourcing a little bit. Because her wings are tilted. Here, let me, now that I've got them stuck on, let me back out here. Let us take a look at Sphinxy. Oh. Stay, palette, there. All right, let's see if her wings will stay on while we tilt her. So her wings are back swept, as you can see, and the undersides are in shadow. So if I tilt her up to where my big light is hitting her, yeah, there's a fair amount of shadow here. So as long as I'm consistent, the wing is more or less all in shadow consistently. I don't have anything really hitting it, unless there's some light that might bounce and hit down here. But up here, it's going to be darker. So one thing I can do is darken down this area with more dark browns, like right under the crest of the wing here. Same thing goes for the other side, is that we would see a shadow right here where the wing is kind of cupping. And so, yeah, so I could go that way. But otherwise, the light on the wing is pretty consistent. It maybe there's a little bit more light hitting here, but I can't tell. That might be from my other light source. So yeah, we're going to add more of the blue on this side, just a little bit. I think I want just maybe a couple of chevrons on each longest feather on the underside abyssal. Because I like to, it's repeating your accent color. So when you've got an accent color, and blue is technically her accent, I used it on her hair. And I'll be using it on her tail tip and back as well. When you've got that, you want to repeat it around the model. So since she has such bright colors on her torso, in order to make people look more at the wings, it's a really good idea to put like one of those accent colors, especially with wings where feathers can be all sorts of different colors, especially on a supernatural creature, right? I'm more likely to like hold it up close to something, Crows and Bones. I don't ever take the model outside, never ever do that. The sunlight is so intense compared to what we're used to working under. You will see every brush stroke, every flaw, every grain of grit, it'll make your blending look like crap. You'll immediately want to destroy your model. Don't ever take it outside. Bounced natural light indoors is fine, but I find that even when I'm happy with the model and proud of it, if I take it outside, I will see every flaw just because sunlight is so many more lumens. They're so much more intense. So I think that direct sunlight is terrible. If you can paint out on a balcony where you have bounced light, indirect light, then that's cool. Like my old painting desk, and actually this one too. There's a building right across from us where the sunshine hits, so it bounces indirect light in here, and it's really nice. It makes a nice soft ambient with a really good lighting here in our painting room. So, oh yes, many flaws, Strato. But yeah, I found that especially when you're like, when I was a younger painter, that when I used to work at Pegasus Games in Madison, Wisconsin, it was dire. Never take your model outside. But I will, like, I've got this L-shaped lamp, like the ones we use at ReaperCon, for those of you who know them, but it's an LED. It's an LED lamp where the light bar is up the top, and then it's got a stalk that it stands on with a base. I will take the model and just hold it up under that LED, or like you've seen me just use my light source from, as I call it, the sun, my ring light, because it's so bright that it really overpowers a lot of other stuff. So I'll do that. Or the other thing you can do is take your tiny little mini sun, the tiny light that we got. If you got your stuff at ReaperCon, you got your little tiny sun. Tiny sun is very useful if you want to double check, because it's extremely bright, so you can, and it's tiny, so you can just click it on and use it to check where your shadows will be. But keep in mind that because it's so bright, it's going to give you really dark shadows, and that would be applicable in sunlight, in full sunlight, but it might not be applicable otherwise. So you really just kind of look at whether you're trying for a strong lighting effect on your figure or not, as far as what you're using for your light reference. And try to be consistent, more or less. Barely got to stormy gray today, Scottish light. Okay, well, you get overcast days are great. All right, let's get back to wings. I just needed to check. All right, boom. I am actually trying to progress. Hey, it's time to stretch. I just saw. I didn't set my timer today. I'm trying to get in the habit of watching the clock, and at like 20 or 25 after going stretch time. Stretch time. When we come back, I will add more of that kind of like that soft kind of creamy coffee colored. I'll wipe out that gray on that side with the creamy coffee color. And I'm actually going to bring this up, I think, even a little bit more creamy, because this is still lighter and creamier than this is. You guys can see it on the camera. So my glaze worked, but it didn't work as well as I'd like it to, which means I might just repaint some of those feathers. So get up and stretch. But yes, there are tons of flaws in my work, Strato. Learn what happens with painting, with writing, with any art or craft. What happens is that your eye adjusts faster than your ability. And this is what stops a lot of people, sadly, because they can see that their work isn't as good as they want it to be before they have the skills to correct it all. And so that essentially, that stops a lot of people because they get discouraged, right? They know their stuff can be cool, super cool, but they can see that it should be, that it needs to be, but they don't know how to fix it yet, right? So, all right, stretch. Get your stretch on, everybody. Get your arms in some position that isn't in a box in front of you. Stretch your back the other way. Stretch your shoulders the other way. Oh, joy. Don't break yourself, Inara. Bricks are not fun. Take a break. Thanks for coming. Oh, boy. Yes, exactly. Julie has the best philosophy of art. Your work is never as good as you want it to be, but that keeps you trying. It's absolutely true. As long as you don't let it, and you should never let it discourage you guys. Like, this is something that I still go through. Like, right now when I'm trying to do, like, more realistic faces, I can still see that I'm lacking X, Y, or Z, right? Or that I'm not executing at the level I want to. But, it's just, I'm not there yet. Like, I can see it. You can see it before you can do it. Don't let that discourage you. Seeing it is the first step that you really need in order to become better. Like, whatever your goal is, you will be able to kind of, see where your work is falling short before you are able to fix it. Don't let it discourage you. Just keep working. I'm going to do some cat-cows, and I'll be right back. Because cat-cows are the best thing ever for your back. almost done. Alrighty, one last bend and then I'm back. There we go. All right. I think we're good. Whee! We have returned. Yeah, practice makes progress. It's true. It's true. I mean, you can learn from looking, but there's a point where you must sit down and work with the paint to understand it. Hydrate, everybody. Well, and that's how you get to be at a high level, where you get to really understand your medium, is by recognizing that there's always something you can learn. More coffee is coming. She's like, Bob, get me more coffee. That's just because he's nice. Bob is very nice. David does not make me tea, but he gives me back rubs, and that's good enough. More than good enough. Hydration game. Everybody takes a drink. You might overhydrate then, Chibi. You'll be floating. All right, let's see here. Yeah, we're going to stay with the Da Vinci today. I'm feeling the Da Vinci. I'm back to the Da Vinci a lot lately. It's just such a good intermediate range size of brush. It's like just about right. It's not as tiny as Tiny Brush, and it's not as huge as the Raphael. And so sometimes when I'm working with like smaller areas inside of a big area where I want tighter detail, it's just right. As the Goldilocks bear said. Or as the Goldilocks said, I guess. All right, let's see here. So 1, 2, 3. We're going to do this. I'm just going to kind of make a transition layer of a creamier, slightly darker beige, like we did on the other side, except it's even a little bit darker on the other side. And then I think I'm going to take my darker, but not totally dark color, my original shadow color, and I'm going to edge that. Too early for Guinness. Ooh, I bought a corned beef roast round the other day because St. Patrick's Day. I almost forgot. Like, you know, some of the holidays are just like, and normally I really like St. Patrick's Day. So even though I'm not a drinker anymore, but I do cook my corned beef in Guinness. And we have plenty of Guinness because David picked up a bunch. So we have the necessary ingredients for a proper corned beef. So I'm going to make corned beef and cabbage, and I may go off diet and make some Irish soda bread because I have a kick butt recipe. I haven't made it for ages. Yeah, I wasn't sure because, you know, when you're in a new area, because I haven't been here for a full year yet, and I'm not sure what the local stores stock for various times of year. But I did manage to stumble onto some corned beef at the store. So I snapped it up. And that's so good for sandwiches. I have an excuse to make some Reubens. Alright, I'm just trying to like figure out how I want this to be at this point. I've thinned down my shading color a lot. And I'm debating how much shading I want. Now out here, remember, we have shading on almost every feather, and you see how shading and highlighting on every feather really helps bring out all those feathers. Now we have the challenge of doing that on a much lighter surface, so we have to figure out how we're going to do that. Yeah, soda bread. Yeah, it's a really old It's from Bon Appetit before they turned out to be evil. But it's from one of their recipes or their magazines, like years and like over a decade ago. I think they published this recipe, and it honestly is the best soda bread recipe I've run into. I even bought caraway seeds just to make it for reals. And I do have some real flour hiding in the cupboard. Alright, so we're just bringing out some of these little details up here. Because the thing about painting light stuff is that people forget that you still need shading for contrast. So we can't just make everything light. If we want our light feathers to stand out better, we do have to put some darker shadows in them. Even if they're just like a slight suggestion. And even if we decide that this is too dark and we lighten it up a little bit later, at least we've defined some of these feathers and we've made them stand out. And some of these are very small feathers, so they're not going to have a lot of definition. You know, they kind of are right up here next to where the tiny feathers are. So just do whatever seems to work. I've got kind of a hole there. And don't use a really dark line either. I'm using my darkest color, but I've thinned it down so much that it's not really showing. And I'm actually going to take this down, I think. Follow your gut. If something doesn't look quite right, then fix it. A lot of mini painting is following your gut. Like, I'll start out with a concept and adjust it a lot as I go. Like, if there's a lot of tiny feathers here that I really can't precisely shade, I'm just going to throw a little bit of a wash over them just to get a little bit of definition so that I can pick out a few details later. But I'm not going to try to painstakingly see every single feather when there's a bunch of tiny feathers. There. Something like that. All right. So that works for that layer. And I may keep that color going on as I work down. Now, I still do need to work with the fact that this is much creamier than this. So I'm going to grab some of my not quite highlight, but second to highest light. Let me get a bigger brush for this. Yeah, that'll work. Oh, you do corned beef a lot? Yeah, I don't. Yeah, there was soda bread at Sprouts too, but I just, it's so much better when you make it yourself. Then it gets warm out of the oven and you can put Irish butter on it and it's so tasty. Maybe I'm just silly about that. But if it's like, if there is a meal that I only eat once a year, I like to kind of go all out for it. Besides, I don't do much baking on the new diet. I don't do much baking at all. Let's see. I think I want kind of a halfway between these. So I'm going to paint over the top of these. Probably these. Just to get my lighter color. I'm using, again, thinned paint. I'm not using a full strength base coat. I don't really need to use a full strength base coat just to get these to like go a little bit more creamy, a little bit warmer. Yeah, look, try some Kerrygold salted butter on your bread or muffin next time you eat something that you normally eat with salt with a butter on it. Kerrygold is really good. Like, once I tried Kerrygold, I never went back. And I think the salted is really good. But if you don't like salted butter, they make an unsalted one as well. But I always liked salted butter on my bread, probably because I had a salt addiction when I was a kid. But it's super tasty. Trust us. Trust us! Besides, it seems suitable to choose Irish butter for your Irish soda bread. I'm kind of going around my little black markings here. I don't really want to lose them. I like them. So I'm just kind of like putting on some. Yeah, worth the cost. Yeah, much tasty. Yeah, Kerrygold is the best butter. There's a pastured brand I like now too, but I go back and forth between them. Kerrygold's still like grass-fed. But for just like eating it on stuff like muffins or cornbread or soda bread, I think that Kerrygold wins. If you're having butter on something for extra flavor, extra buttery flavor, how about that? Just accentuate some of this light. We're going to block out some of this gray color, and then it'll be more in line with, yeah, now it's coming in a lot more in line. It's close enough at this point where I feel pretty good about it. I did use kind of a really dark shadow here in the original, like, beginning. I was using some black, and I was probably mixing that in. I do think I'm going to go more brown than that. I might have to mix a new shadow. I mean, it's okay, Jabberwock. I'm sure finished butter is also awesome. Don't you guys have a lot of dairy? Or don't they have a lot of dairy up there? Yeah, I mean, come on. I'm a foodie, Strato, so if you are, like, into it, I cook. My current quest is learning to cook really good Indian food because I love Indian food, and there's so much good Indian around here, but I don't want to always have to pay for restaurant prices. So I learned to cook it myself. So yeah, if you have any cooking questions, I got your back. I make all sorts of stuff. All right, I'm going to try to mix a new color. I'm going to do a little bit of rich leather and russet and brown liner, but I'm going to do a lot less rich leather to make a nice dark brown. I might put an extra drop of brown liner in it. We'll see. Weird. It must have been a bad batch, Francis. Irish butter is pretty darn good. Although, to be fair, I have not tried any brand other than Kerrygold. So, to be absolutely fair. Okay, we've got that dark mixed again. Now I really want to make something even darker and more gray. So I'm going to grab another drop of brown liner. I'm mixing it even darker. Yeah, I was actually just thinking, Francis, that we need to put at least a channel for us to all show our food. It also helps when you're, like, on a diet, like I am now, to share, hey, this is a healthy thing I made for supper. It kind of, helps kind of give you good feedback. Although my healthy things are probably not healthy by other people's lights. I do add a lot of fat, but that's because I'm on low carb. All right, that's getting darker. It might be dark enough. I'm trying to mix a color that has just a little bit of rich leather and a little bit of the russet brown in it, but is just a little bit grayer for these middle feathers. I don't want it really, really gray. Ooh, Kerrygold. Yeah, they do go a really good sharp cheddar, don't they? I don't eat a lot of cheese these days because I'm cutting back on dairy, but I do eat some really good cheese every once in a while. These days I tend to do sheep's milk and goat's milk cheeses. So we do pecorino for our eggs on the weekend. And I do use regular Parmesan still. They have good Parmesan here. But I use like sheep's milk feta cheese instead of cow's milk feta cheese. Yeah, I agree, Abyssal. I mean, I was on the ketogenic diet for 3 years, and lost like 60 pounds on it. So, and that's like 75% fat. And I was healthier than my lab work with my doctor was healthier than it has ever been. A lot of that would be the weight loss, but now I'm more low carb. Although I think I might have accidentally slipped into keto earlier this week because my carb count is so low. Because the first thing to go when I start a diet, if I have to cut calories, the first thing to go is stuff with sugar in it. Or that has, has carbs. Is I tend to tend to shove that to the curb first because I want to keep my my olive oil and my other tasty things. So I'm doing a little bit of a wet blend here, just a spot wet blend to get this shadow in here underneath the row of feathers, but to get it to blend in a little bit to the wings, I'm just grabbing my light color and kind of mixing it into my dark color that I put down first. And if you work fairly fast, this is totally doable. It won't quite dry, and you'll have time to work it. And you just ask yourself, you know, how much of a shadow you want on that row of feathers. So I'm happy with that feather. I'm happy with this color. It's kind of a burnt coffee with lots of cream color in it. I like it. Yeah. And I've been cooking Indian and it's addictive, Francis. It's so addictive. Oh my gosh. I have so many spices. Yesterday I got an envelope in the mail and David went, "More spices?" That's how bad it's gotten. But I want all the spices. And no store around here has fenugreek. Where was I supposed to order it? But it's like a key ingredient in some regions of Indian cooking, so yeah, Indian food is very twistable. I mean, even the Indian cookbooks, you know, the chefs will tell you, they're like, you know, people make alterations to basic curry recipes all the time. It's why they're very flexible. So I don't feel bad about using substitutions. Like, I can't have tomatoes, so I've been using peaches and tamarind in place of tomatoes, and actually quite successfully in one of the curries I made last week. So I have to say that's going to work. David didn't even notice that it was peaches. He's like, "Wait a minute. There's peaches?" But the peaches give the body and texture of tomato, whether you puree them or chop them. And the tamarind gives you that sour hint. Oh, that's too bad, Twisted Oma. But you know what? Oh, yeah. I should get... Hold on, I went splat. Maybe I'll... There are a couple now. I'm currently, I started on easy mode. Easy mode is actually, is it called Instantly Indian? It's Madhur Jaffrey, is Madhur Jaffrey, Jaffrey. She's one of the most famous Indian chefs on the planet. She's done a lot of good cookbooks. I started though with her Instant Pot one because pressure cookers are a big part of Indian like cooking in daily life, and so I figured that mine would be a good tool. So I actually bought her specifically for the Instant Pot one. And it's kind of an easy mode cookbook if you're just trying to get into Indian, but you don't want to see a list of like ingredients that you can't necessarily find or don't have around the house. Like, there are a couple things that you probably want to pick up, but in general, she uses very accessible ingredients for US supermarkets, and British ones, one presumes. And possibly, I don't know what European supermarkets look like, so never been in one. But just standard spices. She's not using any crazy stuff. And I think it's Madhur Jaffrey's Instantly Indian Cookbook. And so that's for the Instant Pot if you've got one. If she also gives a lot of slow cook directions in there, so if you don't have an Instant Pot, you could just slow cook it. But that's the one I started with. But then I picked up, because somebody recommended it, just for the photography and that the recipes were all spot on. Rick Stein, who's a British chef and TV personality, he has a TV show on Amazon Prime called Rick Stein's India that David and I have been watching. I had picked up the book before I even knew it was, a TV show went with it. But it's been actually kind of fun and inspirational to watch the show after I've read through the book and go, oh, I remember that curry. I just read about it. But he's got beautiful photography and little bits of history, and so I'm really liking his book right now. I made an egg curry, a very simple egg curry last night, which I really liked, but David wasn't like super fan of. So this is the experiment phase where we find the curries we really love. All right, so doing just little bits of and really thinned paint here. Let me show you how thin this paint is. Like you can see, it's like that. And thinning it like this gives me a line still, but it's a pretty subtle line, right? You can just barely see that line. That's what I want. I don't want big dark lines on feathers, because usually you see the overlap, but you know. Oh, Kung Fu teacher, vegetarian curry. Oh yes. Oh yum. Yeah, I've been trying to walk more. Madhur Joffrey. So M here. I'll even write it on the page. I'll write it on the same sticky note I made a note of Lucas brushes on. Here we go. Where's my pen? There it is. I think her name is, let's see, put it on camera. Madhur Joffrey, Instantly Indian, I want to say. She's famous though. She's like got a lot of books. I've considered buying some more, but I have so many Indian cookbooks now. It's like, seriously, it's a problem. So that's for the Instant Pot. And I've made her sag, and I've made her, what other one do we do? Oh, we love her Indian Chinese pork chops. Oh my gosh. One of my favorite things ever. That's like a recipe that has gone on our we do this regularly list. Because Indian Chinese fusion is a thing, and it's so good. And yeah, that's a quick Instant Pot recipe for pork chops. It's just really good. The pork chops just fall off the bone. It's lovely. This weekend I'm probably going to try her Rajasthani lamb curry recipe, because I've got some lamb that I need to use. Hold on. Oh, we should go visit India. I'll tell you, watching this show is making me want to visit India, because it's really beautiful. Hold on. I gotta catch up. I missed some questions here. Hold on. Wing painting question. Hold on, let me get it. Tips for making the wings look spectral. Honestly, Big Apple, I'd paint them kind of like the Kyrian wings in WoW right now, where they're like, the shadows are all like teal or turquoise. Kind of, because spectral usually these days means kind of a glowy blue-green. Like, I think I would maybe even use spectral glow. Hold on, let me grab, or phantom glow. Phantom glow or spectral, but like that color, or even a little bluer, depending on what colors she likes. The important thing is, if you want something to look spectral, don't add black or gray. That implies like a natural shadow and substance. Use like more of a pure color where it's that reads more magical, and then just highlight it up with white. That's what I would do for spectral wings. Yeah, you could do a purple. I would use... Again, I would use a glow color, but I would use runic, and I would shade the wing feathers with runic purple, highlight with runic glow and white, take it up to white. So a lot of white on the wings, probably. Because if it's magic, that means it's usually glowing. So that's why I would use lighter colors and go up to white. Bye, Dragon Eye! Thanks for coming! Hold on. Yeah, it does vary a lot by region. Yeah. That's why I like all these cookbooks, because they give me like everything from Rajasthani to Keralan to what I was just talking about doing. I don't remember. But you know, all sorts of different regions. There we go. So I'm liking how this is coming along now, guys. I'm liking how this is coming along. I do need to add my warmer shadow more down dark here. It's coming along. Let's see. I want to make it a little warmer down here. So once again, I'm going to do kind of a spot blend where I lay down the dark shadow, and then I grab some of my beige. I just kind of smoosh them together right under the feather there. Then I can add some of my lighter color and blend that out into the feather. If you do it just fast, with little dab motions, you can get a nice natural shadow. Oh, good. Well, that's perfect then. Yeah, just go heavy on the white, and you might even just want to prime it white and just start adding in, like, glazing in little bits of the runic glow, and then making the like the darker shadows like I'm doing here with the runic purple. They might read more pink then, but you can still add little bits more runic purple to make it more purple. So I do love saga. I wish it didn't take so long to make, but it's like with the spinach, you have to slow cook it, so it's a minimum 4 hours. But I do like that I get to control the ingredients, because a lot of Indian food does throw tomatoes in, and I have a major tomato problem as far as a reaction to it, so... One of the things that drove me to become a better cook was having a weird diet and things I couldn't eat. So it's just easier to make it all myself. Alright, so again, blending in the shadow there, so that we're getting some nice natural shadows. And if I decide that this shadow is too heavy, I can do another glaze and bring it up a little bit more lighter like it is up here. I'm going to line these wings down here. But I think we might have a winner here, guys. I think we might have a winner. I'm liking how this looks. And once we highlight these little feathers up here, they'll look a lot less dirty and a lot crisper. And I think that'll help a lot. Ah. Couldn't help Chibi Lady Godiva. Oh my gosh, Chibi. Oh, yeah, if you got a lot of issues. Yep, food sensitivities, no cheese. And vegetarian. Well, that's fun. That's fun, Francis. It just, you know, at some point you just gotta shrug and treat it like a challenge, right? It's, I mean, it's an incentive to start trying to cook some different stuff. Indian is really good for vegetarian, though. There are many great curries that can be made vegetarian that have a wonderful amount of flavor. Since the root of a lot of their sauces is, you know, just onions, oil, onions, water, or oil, onions, coconut milk, or, you know, depending on region. It's very... And the spices are most of the flavor. You can really adapt Indian to a lot of special diets, I think. Alright, now we're going to kind of bring in a little bit more shading here. These are big, long feathers, so I can be a little more bold on my shadows, but I definitely still want to blend that stuff in, so if I see that I got out of line there, I'm going to come in and fix that with a little bit of a wet blend. This is fun. Like, this kind of work, you can think of it as tedious, or you can think of it as fun, and I would recommend thinking of it as fun. Because you're making everything come out and all the little details come out, which for me is a fun part, right? Is when everything starts looking really good. So even though you could think that this is tedious, if you reframe it and you kind of embrace just the fun kind of relaxedness of it, because you're just doing the same thing over feather after feather, and so you can get in kind of a groove. It's a good way for you to practice your spot wet blending if you're doing the kind of thing that I'm doing, where I'm blending the shadows together to kind of bring out the wings. Yes, this hobby is addictive. Yeah, yeah. Well, you can totally tune that, Francis. Yeah, I'm kind of glad I don't have a digital printer at this point, or a 3D printer. I have so many beautiful things to paint already. Although I made progress. I made progress last night. Actually, you guys, I'll be streaming on my own channel later today, Painting Big, twitch.tv/Painting Big. And I'll be working on the Black Crow halfling that David bought me. I got her face almost to the point I need it to be last night. Here, let's take a brief hiatus. So her face is coming up really well now. And I changed her shirt to pink and I love it. So, yeah, so we're working on her. And I figured out what I want to do for the freehand, though it'll be a while till I tackle it. Freehand will be kind of the last thing. Yep, Goth Rogue. Goth Rogue. Goth Girl Rogue. David was not convinced, but I love her, and that's all that matters. I'm just kind of painting that one for fun, so I don't know how far I'm going to push her. I may just paint her and not go, like, totally all out on her. Sometimes you just need to paint stuff for fun. Like, even if you're really trying to improve and trying to push yourself, like I tend to, overachiever that I am, it helps to just take a break and paint a model that you love just for fun and not go totally over the top on it. Just make it look good. Make it look good till you're happy with it and done. No, it was not. It is actually, it is a color I wish I could make now, guys. But it is Violet Red 9025 with white, pure white in it. It's a beautiful pink, isn't it? I just had a hunch. I was like looking at it and going, you know what? Probably, it's really thin, Francis. It might even be like, I don't think it's 1-to-1. It's probably somewhere between 2-to-1 and 1-to-1. If you mix up brown liner with a hint of russet brown and rich leather, and you spread it over your palette, and it looks like that, that's about right. I think that's somewhere between 2-to-1 and 1-to-1. You want to be able to draw a line, but you don't want the line to be full strength. So you can like practice, thin your paint. This is something actually everybody should do if you're getting to understand paint consistency. Is mix up your paints to like 3-to-1, 2-to-1, 1-to-1, and then see what kind of line you can draw with it. Like try it with liner and try it with walnut and see how thin of a line you can draw and like how dark it is, right? And all these things like will give you an idea then that you kind of know what consistency you want. I didn't want a very dark line on here because it would be too strong for these wings because they're such a light color. But I wanted the color. I wanted that grayed out kind of dark brown. So I mixed the dark brown, but then I thinned it so much that it essentially paints as a lighter color. And then I'm also using it, remember, I'm also wet blending as I go a little bit. So when I put down a little bit of that brown, I'm mixing in a little bit of my off-white to create shadows. That's going to bring in a little bit more gray there, but that's okay. Little touches of gray are going to be fine. Yeah, that's looking pretty good. I'm pretty happy with this. Oh, let's see here. Oh, we're off on 3D printing. If thin always drools over adjacent things, you need to unload your brush better, Francis. So, thin. I don't do that. I don't get a ton of paint in it. You never want to do that. Instead, when you are dealing with thin, grab a little tiny bit. So that's like maybe half, and it doesn't distort the tip very much. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 dabs off. 10 dabs off allows me to do like really thin. And notice that they are thin because I did thin my paint. But notice it's not running everywhere. And if I want darker lines, then I have to use slightly thicker paint for this. But this is very thin paint. I mean, it's almost a wash. So you gotta load up only a tiny bit of your brush and then dab it off. Dab it off. Get it all off. Like, because it's thin paint. You can't take too much off. Unload it. So if your paint is running onto adjacent areas, it's how much you have on your brush. Yeah, I test on my thumbnails sometimes, but I mostly test it on my palette. Oh yeah, I don't care. Yup. I have no, I mean, I worked for Reaper. Let's see what time, it's March 11th. In 20 days, Abyssal, I will hit my 18-year anniversary with Reaper. But I don't care if you don't use Reaper. It's all good. Use whatever you want. As long as you're like learning stuff, as long as you learn what you want to learn from this stream, don't care. As long as you acknowledge that Reaper is super cool for having a cool stream like this, we're all good. 70% of the paint ends up not on the mini. Oh, is it drying too fast in your brush maybe? Is that what you mean? Abyssal? Because then you do need to thin it just a little bit more. Or it might be your brush shape. I did a lot on brushes yesterday, so I don't want to derail the conversation again in that direction too much. But suffice to say that if you're using thicker paint, you want a thicker bodied brush. You don't want a narrow one as much. If you're thinning your paint, the narrow brush works really good. So if what you're finding is that you're unloading your brush, but then, you know, it like you can't paint as much. Your paint is either too thin for your brush, or maybe you should switch to a slightly thicker brush, fuller bodied for your painting. You're just a big fan of wings. But yeah, I mean, I'm invested in Reaper just because, you know, they've employed me for years, but I don't expect everybody else to be invested in Reaper unless we justify it, right? If you became a fan of us because, you know, we've been super cool and you love our stuff, then fantastic. But if you're not a fan, I'm not going to like look down on you. There are plenty of companies I'm not a fan of. Everybody's got their own groove. Just, you know, let's all just like admit each other's grooves are all cool. If you like painting nothing but pinup models, you go. Yeah, most of it gets wiped off. But if you're putting it on a wet palette or you're putting it here, like if I'm dabbing stuff off, sure, a bunch of it's going to dry around the edge, but then, you know, some of it's going to flow back down into the well, so I figure it's not a waste. I got out of the idea of wasting paint a long time ago. When you know how many drops of paint are in a paint bottle, you stop caring. It's a lot. That's a lot. So it's like, all right, yeah, so maybe I used 20 drops of rich leather during this demo, and maybe 20, but I have a whole nother bottle and there are like 400 drops in the bottle. So I do need to order more brown liner though. Definitely do. But if you find that you're really wasting a lot, Abyssal, then one thing you might try is just trying to load up your brush a little less. So like, if you've been loading your brush up like 2/3 or a half, try to actually get even less on the tip, and see if that helps you. Like, you shouldn't have as much to unload then. Hypothetically. 1 brown liner, 2 brown liners for me. 1, 2 brown liners. Yeah, access is tricky. Well, just be selective, you know. I mean, a lot of people go in whole hog when they discover a new company, and I feel like that's kind of a mistake, and that I tend to cherry pick a lot more now. Like, I'm much more selective about the models I buy, but I'm trying not to get a huge glut of unpainted stuff. I have a lot of stuff that in my boxes and shelves, and I go through it pretty regularly to make sure it still inspires me and I still want to paint it. Otherwise, especially once we have a local paint club again, I'll be giving a lot of it away or selling it at a discount to friends who might want it more than me. It's because we all acquire a lot of stuff, and then over time maybe we're not as excited about it. So that keeps me from going totally all in on some companies that I get really excited about. Like the latest one was Ignis Art, and I'm just like, when they brought out some of their newer stuff, and I had to stop and question myself because I have several models from them already that I need to paint, and decided that it was better to just hold off and enjoy the stuff that I already got. It's hard to get out of the acquisitive mentality. But I have a very limited budget for such things these days. I could do a Patreon yard sale. You're right, I could. Yay, lunchtime. Have fun. All right, guys. I think it's about time to call it. We actually did figure out an underside of the wing that is not too far off of our original, but looks better, I think. And I think it's going to look better on Sphinxy also. So we'll have to doctor the other side, and then we've got to add highlights in and our blue. But let me back out a bit here and put Sphinxy's wings next to her so that we can see her in all of her wingly glory. Doo-doo-doo. Get in there, Sphinx. Ah, all right. That wing does not want to stay in. But there we go. So you can see the differences here that just a little bit of shading and highlighting make, right? So those are Sphinxy's wings. And I think they're looking actually lovely. I think that's going to be beautiful right there. So I'm pretty happy with what we did today. I'm going to be downsizing soon. Yeah, I do it periodically. These days I've been moving enough, Julie, that I've been doing it every time I move. But hopefully David and I won't move for a couple years. So yeah, but there she is. There she is, guys. I really like this wing. I really like what it's looking like. And I'll like it even more once we add maybe a couple of blue spots down there to get... I keep forgetting to put around her base. But I want to be able to paint the base without having to worry about her. So yeah, so... There's Sphinxy. Rawr. Yeah, it does. It needed to be that because we needed the worm up top. It wasn't good enough. It wasn't looking good enough before. I tend to be pretty chipper these days, Army of Heroes. I don't know. I'm also kind of a morning person, and out here on the West Coast when I started is still morning, so I think you guys get my initial burst of energy out the gate, pretty much. I eat my breakfast, and I'm like, yeah! I have my caffeine, I slug the rest of my tea, and then you get me. So my energy level does dip throughout the day. I hit a slump about 4, but yeah. So, okay, cool. Thanks for showing up, everybody. Justin, summoning disembodied brain Justin. Brain in a jar, Justin. Do we have a raid? Yeah, tea is a good idea. Tea is always a good idea. But yeah, so there's Sphinxy. Yes, we have a raid. Awesome. Yeah, have fun, Julie. Hope you and Bob have a good day. Thanks for showing up. We didn't get a Derek or a Bryce. We have a Bryce, actually. We did have a Bryce. You bet. You bet. I'm glad you guys enjoyed it. Yeah. All right, we're going to raid Zambies. Awesome. I will be on later this afternoon, guys, 4:30 p.m. Central USA time on my own channel, twitch.tv/paintingbig. I'll see you then.